Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. We are now in the teens. We're in the teens. We're at, 11.
We're in the tweens.
We're in the tweens. Yes, we're in the tweens. We're not really in the teens yet. That's another 2 weeks. But I am Sean Wasserkrug. With me, as always, Brian Michaels, where we are talking about about 5 films that came out this weekend in movie history. Some are good, some are bad, some are we thought they were good, but we don't think that way anymore. But we got some, I think, some really good picks this week. Last couple weeks is we thought this episode was gonna be better. This week I think we got a really, really good episode. Brian, what do you think?
I think so. I mean, like you said, there's always a little good and bad of everything. This week we got a little more, variety. Some weeks we've had like action heavy or comedy heavy. We got a pretty good mix this time.
Yeah, I think we do too. Let's go ahead and start with our first film. It is going to be my pick. This movie, I love this actor. I think for the most part, you either love or hate this guy. I personally love him. And this is probably, when I think of my favorite films of his, I don't ever think of, I always think of this one like third or fourth, but honestly, it's probably my favorite. And that is the 1997 Jim Carrey comedy, Liar, Liar. Liar, Liar came out March 21st, 1997, had a budget of $45 million, had a weekend opening of $31.4 million. It was number one its opening weekend and spent 4 weeks at the number one spot and had a finished box office of $302.7 million, $181.4 million domestic, and $121.3 million international, which for 1997, that's a lot. That's a lot of money for 1997.
I'm most impressed by the $45 million budget because like 20 of that was Jim Carrey's salary.
Probably, because I mean they're literally, if you think of the film in general, it's like you got the courtroom, you got the office, you got the house, and then he's just driving around.
You got Jim Carrey.
And like the Jim Carrey, because there's not really another big cast member in this film. I mean, you got I think the next biggest.
It's a solid cast for sure, but not big names. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like the next biggest one is like I guess Jennifer Tilly, because is it Mara Tierney?
Maura Tierney.
Maura Tierney. I mean, she was on ER, or actually, I don't even know if she was on ER yet for this, but it was like right around when she was starting in ER. So I mean, she was gonna be huge for ER standards, but in terms of movies, she wasn't big. And then Carrie Elways. I mean, besides Robin Hood Men in Tights, I don't think anyone really, and Princess Bride, obviously, because this was before Saw. So I mean, this was definitely probably have that budget.
Twister though.
I did forget about Twister. Was it the year prior? 1996, yeah. Right? Yeah, it was the year prior. I love Liar Liar. As I was watching this movie, I was literally quoting every line, even like the regular lines of this film. Like even when it wasn't a joke, I was still able to quote 97% of this film. I think this, like, we get Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura, where he's playing this over-the-top outlandish character. We got The Mask, where he plays an over-the-top outlandish character. Dumb and Dumber, incredibly stupid. This is the first movie, I think, with him where he's, at least in his prime, I'm talking about like stuff like Once Bitten or stuff like that, but like in his prime, where he's playing just a regular guy. He's a lawyer, and he's father, ex-husband. But we get this thing that happens to him where, his kid wishes that he can't tell a lie. And that's where the Jim Carrey of it all comes into play. And I think this is some of the best Jim Carrey comedy. I know you were saying, and I'll let you say it, what your issue was with Jim Carrey in this film. But, I mean, the iconic scenes from this film, to the pen is blue scene, to the him kicking his own ass in the bathroom, to when he gets pulled over. There's so many iconic scenes in this film, and I love it. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. I know you're not as high on this as I am, Brian, but what are your thoughts on Liar Liar?
I actually really enjoy Liar Liar. I think it's a very fun movie, very funny, and I hadn't watched it in years, so I'm kind of glad you picked this one. Got you watch it.
I picked it like I was like, oh, Liar, 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 Liar. You're like, okay. And I'm like, no, Liar, Liar.
So I mean, I liked it at the time it came out too. I remember thinking it was funny, but like I said, I hadn't watched it in years. So I rewatched it now, and I still think it's very funny. And even I remember like a ton of the lines from this movie, and I'm not nearly as obsessed with it as you are. But I mean, I definitely have movies like that where I can quote the entire movie, even the most, meaningless lines. But this isn't one of those. But even I remember some of these iconic scenes and lines. Jim Carrey has always been kind of hit and miss for me. Like when he goes too goofy, like the Ace Venturas, I'm not a fan of things like that. Although then Dumb and Dumber, I just love. I think he's great in that one. And this one, my only problem was almost kind of a little bit of identity crisis because I thought he was really funny, but sometimes I think he just went too far with the goofy faces and his just the goofy sounds he was making, things like that. It's like, okay, it kind of seems like those came from a different movie. And I mean, yeah, they were funny, but I just thought he went just one step too far. I still thought it was very funny, but there's just one step too far.
I see, as you're saying that, I'm laughing because I'm picturing parts of the movie where he's doing those, and it worked for me. It really worked for me. And see, that's the thing too, is like, I love Ace Ventura, especially the first one. Whereas Dumb and Dumber, I appreciate his performance in that, but I don't love Dumb and Dumber. My best friend's probably gonna no longer be friends with me because that's like his favorite comedy of all time. Maybe it's because he made me watch scenes of that on repeat for like 3 hours straight on certain nights when we'd hang out. So Dumb and Dumber's kind of numb to me. But there's just so many fantastic scenes in this that just really shows the physicalness of Jim Carrey's comedy. Like, we get that in Ace Ventura and The Mask and stuff like that. But just the physicalness of him in this film. Just the how many times he would just there was the one part where his boss, and he just literally just holy hell, and just starts falling apart. And then the parts where he's crawling on his knees begging his secretary to come back, and then the part there's
I've had better.
I've had better. I've had better. It's just oh god, there's so many great moments. And the one part where the secretary's describing to him about her friend who got sued by the burglar. He's like, oh my god, I'm 10. It's like he's trying to. That was in the outtakes, but also hands down one of the best outtakes. It was the last outtake in the credits where they're doing the back and forth between him and the other lawyer, and she calls him an overactor, and he just dies. He's like, they're on to me, and I was like, that's how you know that it must have been so much fun working with Jim Carrey, because she called him out on the one thing that everyone calls him out for, and he ate it up. I love that outtake. And as a kid, I didn't get that joke. I didn't get the outtake. But today, I was like, that outtake is great. But I mean, even in terms of the rest of the cast, I mean, you got Sherry O'Terry from SNL, who was a relative nobody at that point. Jennifer Tilly, I think, is great in her small part. Tierney, I think she's good. She doesn't get a whole lot to do.
She's just the typical kind of
white
girlfriend, straight role in most of these comedies like this, yeah.
But I think she's solid. And Elway, I honestly wish Elway would have gotten a little more to do.
She's cute.
I really do. Yeah, but I was talking about Carrey Elways.
Okay.
I wish he would have gotten a little bit more to do. But there's so many moments in this film that I personally love. I don't think anyone who's a fan of Jim Carrey hasn't seen this film. So it's one of those where it's like, I've never heard of Liar Liar. And then it's like, who the hell are you? Everyone who knows Jim Carrey has heard. It's like saying Billy Madison, or saying Adam Sandler, no one's ever heard of Happy Gilmore. It's like everyone knows Happy Gilmore, everyone knows Bill Madison. With Jim Carrey, everyone knows Liar Liar, Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber. It's the other ones that people may not know nearly as much. But with Liar Liar, I was like you, I hadn't seen it in quite a while. But I remembered most of it because I had watched it so much as a kid. That thing was on repeat for me. And it's and to make a court drama, which we talked about last week with my cousin Vinny, to make a court drama, well, it's not a drama, it's a comedy, but to make it so rewatchable. Now, granted, it's because of Jim Carrey's antics, but I mean, even the judge, I thought the judge was great. His back and forth with him and Carrey, I thought worked fantastic in this film. What was the actor or the judge? Jason Bernard. I thought he did a great job. And I thought there was just their banter where he's like, what was it? He was like, a bathroom break. Can you hold it? Yes, I can. But I heard it. Oh, then I'm going to take one too. I just little shit like that. It looks great. And then, of course, one of the greatest lines in the movie. What are you doing? I'm kicking my ass. I don't know how many times through my wrestling career when I'm doing stuff in the ring and I'm like and anyone who's been a pro wrestler who knows when they have time in the ring by themselves, they're basically wrestling an invisible person. They're throwing themselves around the ring. And in my head, all I'm thinking of is like, I'm kicking my ass. It's like I said, that's only going to be a joke for people who have been pro wrestlers because you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that always played in my head whenever I did that stuff. I love Jim Carrey. I'm so glad to see him last year in Sonic the Hedgehog, kind of coming back to the physical comedy of it all. And for people who hadn't seen it, oh my God, I'm blinking on the show. The show he had just done, was it?
In Living Color?
What's that?
In Living Color?
No. I'm talking about most recently, the one where he was kind of like the Mr. Rogers. Kidding.
Oh, I never saw that movie. Or the show.
It's a dark comedy. Because he's basically a Mr. Rogers kind of character. I went 2 seasons. Him, Judy Greer. It's really, really good. And I think that was kind of a stepping stone to get him back to the physicalness of the comedy. But Liar Liar, is it on anything?
Ironically, you can watch it on the True TV network.
True TV.
There's irony for you.
Did they actually? Was it edited?
I don't know. I watch it on digital myself, but the only place you can find it free streaming is through TrueTV.com.
Yeah, and I mean, it's PG-13, but by 1997 standards, there are stuff that's edited. Now, by today's standards, I think that stuff flies fine.
No, it sounds to me like you're trying to wrap this up. I haven't really gotten to talk about this movie, so
go. Oh, I'm
going to jump in now.
I gave you your time to talk.
You asked me one thing. Anyway.
I'm fine.
No, I was just gonna say.
Talk about Liar Liar the entire show. I don't care.
No. It's. I mean, because I talked about like Jim Carrey, and I think it went a little too far with the goofy faces and stuff, but I still very much enjoyed it. Most of my only problems with the movie were more like plot nitpicks. I mean, like I didn't like that he would just he couldn't lie. He also randomly blurted out truths for no reason. Like he didn't have any reason to say anything at all, but he would just have to yell things at people as he walked past them. That was one thing I had with it. Secondly, I didn't like that the whole story of the actual court case with Jennifer Tilly and the kids and that. The whole thing is like she was going to take the kids and she was like this mean mom and really belonged to the dad. And they like never came back to that. It's like Jennifer Tilly just got the kids and, you know, I thought that he would somehow find a way to make that right. They just kind of left that as, oh, sorry, the kids are screwed.
Well, you got to remember in terms of where the story ended, he was getting arrested and both his legs were broken. So he probably was going to get taken off the case.
Yeah, but still, it's like you just leave it like that. It's like, that's kind of a dark ending for that.
Fired too from the firm,
yeah.
So he probably wasn't ever going to be a part of that case. So yeah, that was a storyline that was kind of left.
I honestly didn't like the ending of it, which I'm going to spoil, but it's 20-some years old, so it's fine. I didn't like that he got back together with Maura Tierney at the end.
We don't 100% know that because they thought at the end that it was wished upon by the kid.
But then it's implied that she kissed him on purpose, like she was taking him back.
There's no guarantee that will work.
But it's just like but anyway, she wasn't with Carrey Elways. Which here's my thing is, I liked in this movie that Carrey Elways, like the new boyfriend, was not the villain of the movie. He was a great guy. He was a great guy. He was a little cheesy. Hey, the claw's gonna get you. The claw. But they didn't make him a bad guy. They made him a good guy. He just wasn't Jim Carrey. And so I was kind of hoping at the end like they would still be together. But I mean, like Jim Carrey would fix his relationship with his wife and kid, but they wouldn't like get back together with her. She would get married or whatever with her new boyfriend. So I was a little disappointed they didn't do that. They kind of went the traditional route.
But the only problem with that is that would still result in them having to move to Boston, which effectively is the whole end point of the film is him trying to stop them.
Well, maybe he could choose not to go to Boston or something. I don't know.
Well,
but anyway, that was all just to say.
They could have done something where it was like because he was going to get fired by his firm, maybe he became a lawyer.
Yeah, go to Boston and start a firm.
And so he
did say he wanted to start his own.
They could have done that, but obviously it's a 1997 comedy. They're just trying to wrap it up to the end. But had they, I do agree they probably could have done something like that. And
but that's all just to say that the only negative things I had to say about the movie were plot nitpicks, and it really was just nitpicks because the movie is just a ton of fun. So yeah,
it is.
I recommend.
So if you guys have never seen Liar Liar, which I'm going to call you guys a liar right there, because let's face it, if you've ever been a fan of Jim Carrey, you've seen this film. But if you guys have not seen Liar Liar in forever, I strongly urge you to pick it up at your local library like Brian Michaels, or rent it on Amazon Prime for like $3. It's definitely worth a $3 rewatch. Or go to True TV app and try to watch it, because I've never tried that before, so I don't know if it costs money.
Neither have I. Just found it quite ironic that that's the one place you could watch it.
Yeah, so definitely check out Liar Liar. It is definitely, in my opinion, one of Jim Carrey's best comedic performances. Moving on to our next film, it is the stinker film. For me, this is a film I get made fun of quite a bit in this community because I love this franchise, but I grew up with this franchise, and there are more bad movies than there are good in this franchise, but I can't defend this one. I can't. This one's just straight up bad. Even I hate this one. And that is the 1993, the third film of the I guess, trilogy that killed the franchise for the longest time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Came out March 19th, 1993, had a budget of $21 million, had a weekend opening of $12.4 million, which was number one its opening weekend and spent 2 weeks at number one, and had a finished box office of $42.27 million. I love the Turtles. I grew up with the Turtles. I watched them every Saturday morning on, I think it was Fox. I had the toys. I watched the first two repeatedly. I was not a fan of the first one that Michael Bay produced, but I actually didn't hate the second one. I know it's not a good movie, but I didn't hate it because it felt more like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles than any of the other films had. And I also think, if you guys have never checked out the is it 2007?
7.
Yeah, 2007 animated film TMNT. Go out of your way to check that. I also will say,
that is still the best version of Turtles. I gotta.
It's the best movie version. I personally am a huge fan of the very first film. I think the first one was fantastic, but I can understand why some people who aren't fans of Turtles don't like that one as much. But anyone who's a true fan of the Turtles loves that first film. I will say this, though. Yes, you have the original 1980s, early 90s cartoon series, but the 2013 Nickelodeon series is phenomenal.
That is very good as well.
Fucking amazing how good that series is. And then they ended it and started a whole new one, and it was garbage. But anyway, if you guys are Turtles fans, check out the 2007 animated film TMNT. Check out the 2013 Nickelodeon series that went like 5 seasons. And of course, the old school Turtles. But we're talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, which effectively, like I said, killed the movie franchise. They kept going with TV shows and stuff like that, but it killed the movie franchise till TMNT came out 14 years later. This is the one where they go to Japan. It is lazy. It is not good writing. You could tell they just didn't care about the film because you can see the holes in the Turtles' suits where the humans were, especially on Mikey, because literally right under his was it eye-band, whatever you want to call his mask or whatever, you can see the black holes where clearly is where the actors are looking out at. This movie, just as a Turtle fan, depressed me because of how poorly done. And they brought back the original cast from the sequel and the first film with Elias Cotees as Casey, who's completely wasted in this film. He's basically a comedy character.
I don't know why he was in the movie. He was just there hanging out back in.
Well, that's the thing. Is clearly he was like, look, you got to give me more than just this. Okay, we'll have you play a character from the past in Japan, which also was a worthless character. Paige
Turco,
who I thought was the best April. She's whiny and annoying in this film compared to the second film. Yeah, it's bad. I can't defend this film. It is horrible. Brian, this is the first time we have not watched a stinker together because I literally had watched it a week prior. And I was like, Brian, don't make me watch this movie again. So you actually had to watch this without me. And you said prior that this was the only Turtles film you had not seen before
Correct.
You saw this film. So what were your thoughts on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3?
It's bad. It's not good. But honestly, I didn't think it was that much worse than the first two.
That is blasphemy, sir.
Now, I know you have this nostalgic attachment to them, but I think the first two are not that great. I think they're equally as lazy, both in the writing and the fighting and in the effects and whatever you else want to call it. So, I mean, is this one inferior to those? Maybe, but not by much, in my opinion. I'm sorry. I know this is the last episode of Weekend Crusaders. Goodbye,
If
everyone.
I could turn off your camera real quick, I would. I don't want it to mess with the editing, so I'm not going to.
Right.
But
I mean, but
everything out of your mouth.
there's plenty of stuff not to like about it. I mean, yeah, the writing's kind of lazy. Like, Elias Koteas, it's no reason to be playing that character in the past, because I thought maybe there's going to come around full circle, like he's descendant of him, or they're going to switch places, something like that. But there was no reason for him to play both those roles.
And he keeps going back and forth between good guy, bad guy, and there's no point.
And also, he's not really good at accents, gotta say.
No,
he's trying to do.
He's not.
I mean, the actor who played kind of the main human villain in it, Stuart Wilson, he's one of those guys who always plays villains and everything, from Lethal Weapon and Zorro and all kinds of stuff. He was fine as the usual, mustache twirling villain.
I didn't hate him. He's probably.
So, I mean, there were things okay about it, but yeah, that movie just had like a lot of little problems. I mean, like even early on, like when they're having sword fights and stuff, they're doing like the sword fights like two little kids, like when they just do them up in the air, just clanging the swords together. It was nobody trying to actually hit each other, just clanging the swords together. So the fight choreography is kind of lame there.
Granted, that's always been a problem with Turtles, because you can't have the Turtles kill anybody.
Right. They can at least look like they're swinging at somebody, not just swinging it straight up in the air at each other's swords,
I get that, which is why the cartoon worked so much better, because they would give, like, they made the foot robots at certain points, or they had the little chompers, so they could destroy them with the weapons, but you can't have the Turtles cut.
I get that in kids' movies like this, but my problem, when you ever watch even like, a lot of MCU films and things like that, it's like the villains, whenever they want to actually kill people or hurt people, it's always like aliens or humans in like total head-to-toe like SWAT garb, so you can't see faces. They have to be faceless people if you don't want to hurt people, apparently. So I don't know what
that's Disney at that point.
That really bothers. Well, I mean, it goes for every franchise, but yeah, I mean, you mentioned it looked cheap, like with the costumes. Then one of them that really got me was Splinter, which he's kind of been like this in all of them, but especially in this one. Splinter looked like something you see at Chuck E. Cheese, because you only ever saw him like standing in the window from the waist up, and he's always like talking very stiffly, and it's just like
it almost was like in the first film, Splinter's full bodied.
Yeah.
In the second film, I think Splinter's like always sitting down. And then in the third film, it's almost like
he's always in a window or behind a table or something.
Yeah, it's almost like his like the animatronic just kept breaking down through each film.
Oh, we left us the head this time. Let's just do this.
I mean, it was like Jaws. It's like, okay, we can only show the head. So
right.
It's like progressively through each film, like they just show a little Splinter.
But I mean, there was even like, I mean, there was a few comments that seemed like they kind of sounded a little racist, especially for a kids' film. I mean, at one point, I think it's Casey Jones says to one of the Asian guys, is like, "Oh, you guys do have a good educational system." I'm like, oh my gosh.
I mean, it's 93 at that time.
And then there was jokes in there that were like almost sexual, like they're doing the whole swing thing. And it was
they have a boner.
What?
They literally have a boner joke, and isn't it Donnie and Mike towards April?
I think it is.
Yeah, like I get it. Mikey's always had a crush on April, but obviously it's a turtle and a human. Nothing's gonna happen there. But it's a full-on Wayne's World swing thing and I'm just like, oh my god, what is happening to this movie? And
then there's parts of the writing that just don't make sense. Like they talk about how like at one point couldn't even tell you which turtle's which at this point. I mean, I know which is which, but I don't remember who said what in this movie. But one of them was like he put on like Bermuda shorts before they went back in time, because he's like, well, whoever's gonna take my place, we switch clothes, so I don't want to end up with no clothes on, so put shorts on. It's like, but the other guys that come through, they have their underwear on. When they go through, they take their masks with them. It's like, what? What's the rules here?
It was for the sake of the joke. Just like also at the end where like they're teasing that like they're not all gonna come back, and it's like, come on, guys. You're and then they tease it like Mikey didn't make it through, but then all of a sudden the scepter works a second time really, really fast. And it's like, okay, it's a kids movie. They wanted to scare kids for a split second that Mikey was gonna get separated, and then it's like, once again, just like they ended the second film, they had to end it with like a musical number, and it's not even a good song, like for them. And it's just like, okay, it's a kids movie. We get it. But like first movie tried to be serious, and I think it did a good solid job because it knocked like you literally thought Raphael was gonna die at certain points as a kid. I know you as an adult didn't think that. The second one they doubled down on the kiddie parts, probably because they're like the first movie was too serious. We need to double down on the kiddie stuff, which to me, yes, the main problem with the second one is that literally anything that happens, all four turtles had to have a line, and you really didn't need to have two of them have the line because it's just like, let's have a thesaurus. What's another word for this? All four of them are going to say a different word that means the same thing. And then the third one, it was just like no one cared. You know, they had this subplot storyline where like Raphael became best friends with a little kid, and then once again Mikey's in love with a woman, which is like, dude, come on, nothing's gonna happen there. But it's like
the Asian woman who spoke perfect English, by the way. Yeah,
she spoke perfect English, and even little Yoshi. Which I love that they called him Yoshi with Mario, right? There's like, okay. But it's like they all spoke perfect English there. And so there was a lot there. And let's put it this way. Mikey never would have stayed because there's no pizza back there. They tried to make pizza. It didn't work. There's no way Mikey would have lasted. But yeah, Turtles 3 effectively killed the franchise, at least movie-wise. Which is weird because it doubled its budget. Which, I mean, doubling your budget's still not making your money back. I think you pretty much almost have to triple your budget with, I mean, I don't know how 93 standards are, but it did get 2 weeks at number one. But I think effectively everyone was like, yeah, this one sucked.
I honestly don't think it's so much that the third one sucked and killed the franchise. I mean, the fans of it, I think, didn't like it as much. But I think the big part of it was that the audience for it, like you, who had started watching this franchise as a kid, but that point was getting older and kind of outgrowing it, but they hadn't yet reached that point of, where you are nostalgic for it yet, like when they brought it back later. So it's kind of like, I think it was a combination of maybe underperforming a little bit, but also just like, okay, the audience isn't there. Let's wait a while.
Well, the main problem I think that killed it was that this movie was not good. And then Power Rangers came out like right then and there. And in fact, and then everything was Power Rangers, VR Troopers, Beetleborgs, all that shit. Which, if any of you guys caught that Beetleborgs, you go, oh, yes, I know what the Beetleborgs are. But yeah, I think effectively Power Rangers showing up, and then you had Batman the Animated Series come out, and you had the X-Men. I think effectively the Turtles just kind of lost their spot.
And the effects at that point was kind of kicking off the digital age. The effects were starting to be more dated with the costumes and stuff.
Honestly, I will say this right now. If they had just took the costumes from these three films and put them in the Michael Bay ones, the movies would have been 1,000 times better. I'm telling you that right now. If you would have taken the Jim Henson puppeteering and costumes from these original trilogies and put them in the new ones, I think a lot of the hate would have been dumbed down considerably. Because, I'm sorry, in the new ones, they look like Shrek without the ears. They do. And I feel like if they would have had, kept the classic old schoolness of the Turtles, it probably wouldn't have been as hated as if they came out with. I really do feel that way. But anything else on Turtles?
No, that's all I have to say on it.
Yeah, it's just more depressing than it is straight up just awful. But Turtles is on, all the Turtles movies are on HBO Max. I know that because I watched them all a week prior to this film. But yeah, so you can check that out if you want to see the worst one out of all of them, then by all means. But if I was to say watch the first two and watch all the other ones and skip this one. But moving on, we're going to go to our revisited film. This is a comedy that I personally love this comedy. Brian, I think you're fine with it. I don't think you love it as much as I do. Kind of like Liar Liar. But that is the 2009 film I Love You Man. I Love You Man came out March 20th, 2009, had a budget of $40 million, had a weekend opening of $17.8 million, and was number 2 behind behind The Knowing, or just Knowing, in its first week, which we almost did that as a stinker, which is weird. Had a finished box office of $91.98 million, had $71.4 million domestic, and $20.5 million international. Brian, why don't you start? What are your thoughts on I Love You Man?
I Love You Man, when it first came out, I really enjoyed this movie, and I thought it was very funny, and especially because, I like when once in a while we finally get like an R-rated comedy, like I talked about this last week, I think, that's not necessarily all, it's not sex jokes, things like that, but it's
not a raunchy R-rated.
But it's
comedy.
also not, toned down for that PG-13. They could still make, the whatever jokes they want. So I really enjoyed that. I like Paul Rudd is, good in everything he does. Jason Siegel, I think is, I think he's quite underrated as a comedic actor. I mean, obviously from How I Met Your Mother, but even the movie he's done very well in. He's actually kind of gotten away from comedy for a while now. He's been doing a lot more some serious roles, things like that. I don't know if he has anything coming up or what. But if he doesn't come back to comedy, I'll be very disappointed.
Our Friend that I reviewed about a month or so back. Our Friend, he just did that one.
Is that a comedy? Is that more dramatic?
It's more dramatic.
Yeah, so he's been doing more stuff like that. He did the one where he played what's it called? The End of the Tour. He did that one. A couple others, but I'm hoping he comes back to comedy because I think he's the best part of this movie. I mean, obviously he kind of gets the biggest, most caricature character to play, but I think that's the best job. Now rewatching it again this time, I still thought it was funny, but not quite. Didn't enjoy it as much as I remembered liking it. Now there wasn't anything negative about it. It's just kind of like that. Maybe it's just because the jokes, I've heard them before and it wasn't hitting me for the first time. But I thought it was very funny. But just didn't love it as much as I remembered. See,
with me, I'm like you. I love Paul Rudd. I love Jason Siegel from How I Met Your Mother. And like I said, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I thought was Forgetting Sarah Marshall was 1,000 times better than it had any right to be. That movie had no right to be as good as it was. I love it. And then we got Get Him to the Greek with that, which once again, this movie should never have gotten a spinoff. But Jason Siegel was great in that. So when I saw that these two were coming together, and just the plot base of the story. It was kind of hard to believe that Paul Rudd's character couldn't have friends. Just because it's Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd's so likable.
But the way he played it, I thought was very believable. Yeah.
As awkward as you could play it. Just and it's almost like it was almost like Office cringeworthiness. Just his interactions with everybody was just so awkward. Even the first
it felt very Michael Scotty, come to think of it.
What's that?
Paul Rudd's character kind of felt very Michael Scotty in his awkward humor and stuff. Yeah.
When he's really good at something, he's really good at it. But when he's out of his comfort zone, it's awkward and cringeworthy to watch. And Paul Rudd, because of his chemistry and his charisma, makes it awkward but still a very likable character. It's he doesn't know how to act around guys, but he knows how to act around women, which there are people I know that are like that. They're that one guy that has 1,000 friends that are women, but they never hang out with guys because they don't like sports or they don't like something that all guys like to talk about. And you're just yeah, he's cool, but I don't ever talk to him. And that's what Paul Rudd's character effectively is until he meets Sydney, who's just a super kind of relaxed, chilled guy who you can kind of be friends with anybody. And like I said, their first interactions are you could tell in the interaction, Sydney's should I be worried this guy's gonna murder me? Kind of thing. The dude doesn't know how to say goodbye properly, calls him Jobin and stuff. He's so badly trying to find the nickname. But I love their chemistry together as friends. I think it's natural. I think it works. I love the end where they keep finding different ways to say I love you to each other. Bro Montana, hands down, is one of my favorite lines of the film. Rashida Jones is fantastic. I love her. I think she's great in this. What is with Rush? I feel like Rush pops up in so many films as the group that everyone loves.
It's Jason Siegel. He's obsessed with Rush.
Because in Fanboys, it's Rush also.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it's not a band that I think about a whole lot, but when it's movie related, Rush is always
It must be the whole Apatow group because
maybe, but I mean what I also love about this film is outside of the main three, Rashida Jones, Jason Siegel, and Paul Rudd, it's got a great comic supporting cast. You got Andy Samberg, you got J.K. Simmons, who have small parts, but it works. Lou Ferrigno's funny in this film. Screw you, Hulk's got me in a chokehold. Thomas Lennon. I love Thomas Lennon in this film. And then Andy Samberg's counterpart from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, blanking on his name. Oh, God.
Which character was he? I know who you're
the squeaky guy.
Well, that's Joe Latrulio.
Yeah, George.
He was in The State with Thomas Lennon.
Yes, I love him. Also, freaking Jon Favreau It's like just this is a great asshole character.
And then just one scene, you have cameos from Nick Kroll and Aziz Ansari.
Oh yeah, small little moments. Like I say, it's a great little kind of comedic world that they build around Paul Rudd and Jason Siegel, and they interact. Jamie Presley, another one, where it's like, yes, you have these three mains that are all funny together, but you bring in all this great supporting cast around them, and it's almost like kind of playing like a game of universal catch. Just throw the joke to this one person, they're going to catch it, they're going to hit it, and they're going to throw it back to you, and then you throw it to another one. Everyone is on point. There's not a single bad comedic performance in this film. And when you can have such a great supporting cast around you that aren't overshadowing the three mains, but supporting the three mains, I think it makes it as a very awesome, cohesive comedic film overall. It's not incredibly, laugh out loud comedy such as like a Super Troopers or something like that, but it's one of those where it's subtle, but it's almost perfected to a point where everyone works on such a secretness. I'm not saying the word right. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I think everyone just flows brilliantly through this film. I think the dialogue is hilarious. Slapping the bass, that has stuck with me pretty much ever since this movie ended back in 2009. I love the way this film was put together. Kind of like how you felt about She's Out of My League last week. That's how I feel about I Love You, Man. I feel like just cast-wise, everyone was a perfect choice in this film.
Yeah, I think the only thing, and again, I think this is kind of a nitpicky thing because I really do enjoy the movie very much, was that it's kind of started with the Judd Apatow movies and it's kind of spread to like the other movies that some of those same actors like Paul Rudd and Jason Segel and Seth Rogen, these people do. Is I think that they've almost gone a little too far when they let people improv too much in these movies. Because while there are good moments, it just seems like there are certain scenes, whether it be the slap in the bass or the the Bro Montana scene you talk about, things like that, where it's like, okay, we get the joke, but you keep going and going. It's like, okay, we get it. Can we move on? It's like, I understand that it's letting them improv and kind of some good jokes will come out of it and things like that. But sometimes they just like let them do too much. It's like, okay, let's move on.
I'm going to push back on the slap in the bass scene because at the end of that scene, you can tell that that's Rashida Jones breaking and not the character. And they left it in the movie. And I love that. But that's just because I just love the whole thing. And then like how Paul Rudd can't do any accent but leprechaun. I love that joke. I don't know why, but I love that joke. But yeah, I Love You, Man, I think is a great comedy. Paul Rudd, I want to say they were back to back between this and Role Models. I think he hit like a great dude. Like, weren't they back to back?
The whole I don't know. I can look it up for sure, but the whole 2000s, he just like
he was on fire. Like he just hit this rhythm where Paul Rudd just couldn't miss. Like, and he would do the indie films. Which, granted, I have not seen all the indie films, so I can't defend all of them. But like, he would just pop into certain films. I mean, you had like Perks of Being a Wallflower. That was more serious in a sense, but
you're Show Up and Walk Hard or Forgetting Sarah Marshall or things like that. Yeah,
he had Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Yeah, you had Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Role Models.
So Marshall was 8. Role Models was also 8. This was 9.
He basically did Monsters vs. Aliens in between these.
Yeah.
That was basically it. But yeah, like Paul Rudd just had this, like, he was just in sync with every performance he had. I personally couldn't stand Monsters vs. Aliens, but that's not, he had a very, very small role in that movie. I don't blame him for that. I blame the plot being boring as shit. But anyway, I Love You, Man. Is that on any streaming services?
Not for free, no.
Not for free, no. But if you guys have never seen I Love You, Man, and you guys are fans of Paul Rudd or Jason Segel, who I agree with you is completely underrated, I need some more comedy of Jason Segel back as well because I love his comedy. So we are both in agreement on that. Definitely check it out. It's definitely worth the $3 rental on Amazon Prime if you guys have never seen it. Or if you guys haven't seen it in a long time, just like Liar Liar, check it out. It's a good rewatch.
Just buy the damn things.
Or I'm trying not to make people have to spend a ton of money. You can rent it or you can buy it like we do because I have them on DVD. Going to our feature film, I would say this film was probably one of the most talked about horror films of the early to mid 2000s. Would you agree with that?
It was one of the what?
probably one of the most talked about horror films.
Most talked about? Yeah.
Early to mid 2000s. Like everyone was like in love with this horror film. And that is Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead came out March 19th, 2004, had a budget of $26 million, had a weekend opening of $26.7 million, which was number one its opening weekend, and shockingly only 1 week at number one. I figured this one would have had multiple weeks. Had a finished box office of $102.27 million, $59 million domestic, and $43.25 million international. Brian, you actually watched this one more recently than I did, so why don't you tip it off with Dawn of the Dead?
So Dawn of the Dead, obviously a remake of the George A. Romero film from 78, 80. I don't know when this was made.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of the head either.
But it's a movie that I think a lot of people were attached to, maybe didn't want to see remade, and especially because this has the quote unquote fast zombies as opposed to the zombie shuffle going on. I think a lot of people were kind of hesitant about it. But I mean, this one, I went in and watched it, and first of all, I remember this just weird anecdote. I remember when this movie came out, like a week before it opened on USA Network. I don't know why I remember this. They had this thing where like, we're going to show the first 10 minutes of the movie, which they do kind of thing on the internet kind of all the time these days. Like you always show the opening scene of a movie. They had never kind of done this kind of thing before. It wasn't a trailer or anything. Like, we're going to show you the first 10 minutes. And me and a friend watched it. We're like, holy shit, we got to go see this movie. Because one thing I love about this movie is the way that it jumps right into it. I mean, there's like one briefest of scenes before she goes to bed.
Within 5 minutes.
Yeah. She goes to bed, wakes up in the morning, and just all hell's broken loose. And it just jumps right in the movie. And another thing I love about this movie is they never try to explain what happened. There's no.
They never do. Yeah. No.
They don't explain if it's a virus. They don't try to explain it, make sense of it. As far as you know, it's just a supernatural thing. But they never even get into that. They're just like, this is what's happening. They don't care why it's happening. And so I really love they didn't try to over-explain that. But yeah, this movie just jumps right into the action. The opening 10 minutes, I think, are amazingly done. It feels very realistic. I think it's very kinetic. Once they kind of get to the mall, which is kind of where the bulk of the movie takes place, things slow down a bit, but intentionally so. You get a lot more character interaction. It gets more into that, who's been bitten and, if they get inside kind of thing. But I really enjoy the movie. I thought it's a good ensemble cast they put together. This is Zack Snyder's. Was this his first movie?
I'll check. Keep talking.
But anyway, it was before 300, and so it was one of his first movies, if not his first one. And I think he really kind of announced his presence because I'm like, wow, this is a really well done movie. And because he hadn't started into his.
Was his first actual film. He did video shorts and documentaries prior, but this was his first film. Okay.
And he hadn't kind of adopted the style which he later would adopt with 300 and moving on through Watchmen and Justice League and everything else, where it's like so much slow-mo and so very over-stylized things like that. This is more just a very straightforward, normal directed movie from him. And I thought he did a great job. So we're looking forward to great things from him. Now, since then, he's been hit and miss for most people. But I thought he did a great job directing this.
Yeah, I agree with you. The first 10 minutes of this is perfection in terms of a zombie film. I think it does everything that you could possibly do to stage the world that we're in masterfully. They literally show the opening sequence of this in 40-Year-Old Virgin, and the reaction of that character is the reaction that everyone had in the theater when you see the little girl and she just straight up attacks that, which you're thinking that husband's going to be a main character throughout the film, and he gets taken out, and then she does the whole thing when she pushes her and she like shoots back up, and then she escapes the house, and you're just seeing the world around her and just the way they're shooting everything.
I have to say my favorite part of that opening sequence, it's like she's finally got in the car and is driving away, and he's chasing behind her, and like as she's driving away, and you see it's like he just notices somebody else at the yard next to him, just like goes and just turns and turns.
It's a masterclass. And then there was like, what was it like when they do like the sky shot where she's driving and like right behind her, like doesn't the car
like goes out of control, crashed into like a gas station explosion. Yeah.
Just showing the mass craziness that's happening around her, and you're focused on Sarah Pauli's character, Anna. I think, like I said, the first 10 minutes, probably if everyone talks about Up being like the best 10 minutes to a Pixar film of all time, I think the first 10 minutes of Dawn of the Dead 2004 is probably the best 10 minutes of probably any horror film, because it's throwing you right into the mix, and it's outside of Scream.
I was gonna say people might say Scream.
Outside of Scream, I'm talking about like zombie wise. I think it does the best 10-minute opening of everything. I agree. Once they get into the mall, outside of the first like 15 minutes of the mall, it does start to get a little slow to the point where I almost feel like the character development isn't as great there. I feel like it's just more like they ran out of things to do in this part. I feel like they could have done some more things. Because there's that 10-minute bit where they start doing like the montage or just showing them living in the mall. I loved the I forgot the guy's name, the guy who was across from the mall, and they were playing like the celebrity roulette.
His name is Andy. Yeah.
Andy, the celebrity roulette where they were shooting zombies that looked like celebrities.
Don't get Burt Reynolds.
I'm not gonna lie. I could watch a TV series of something like that. It just, but obviously you'd be making it to make it. Like if there was like a zombie apocalypse, kind of like Shaun of the Dead, where they had like zombie like shows. Like I would watch a show like that. But yeah, I feel like once they get into the mall and everything, and they kind of get to like everything's safe for them, it hits kind of a stale moment, and then they have to kind of find ways to make shit happen and pick up the pace where the stupid girl and does stupid shit, and then that forces them to cut because the dog goes over to Andy, and the girl goes and does something stupid. You have to fall into the tropes of people do stupid shit in horror films, and it causes everyone else to die. Like literally, her doing that led to pretty much almost all of them dying by the end of the film. I was not a fan of the end. I hate the ending of this film personally, and I'm not
the very ending.
Yes, the credits part with Down with the Sickness, and they're just showing like random that's the Zack Snyder I know. Like there's Zack's there, like he like the whole part was like Zack Snyder's like, oh, he's a revolutionary, he's great, and you watch the credits and you're like, there's Zack Snyder right there. Like that's the Zack Snyder we know now.
I didn't mind it.
It's stupid. I hate that part, but the performances I think are all real solid. I think if anyone who's ever been a big Modern Family fan wants to see Ty Burrell as a dick, then definitely watch Dawn of the Dead, because if you guys only know him as Phil, is it Mumphy?
I never watched Modern Family.
Modern Family, then you get to see him in a totally different light in this. Ving Rhames, I think Ving Rhames is great, pretty much almost everything he's in. He's just one of those actors that just shows up, does his damn job, and gets out. Another actor, Jake Weber. I think he's fine, but he's kind of stale and everything. He's like, you're supposed to root for him, but then it's just like.
Well, it's odd because Jake Weber is an actor who he's probably one of those actors who I've ever seen, but most people don't even know his name.
I know him from The Ghost Whisperer.
He often plays like the dick. I mean, he's in Meet Joe Black and I think White House Down is one of the stuff. He's kind of like he's like not the villain, but like the antagonist, like the other boyfriend or the thing. He's always kind of that role. And so it's weird to see him here trying to play like, the hero essentially, as much there is a hero in the movie, of the movie. And so he's fine. He's a little bland, but he's fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's bland. You got Mekhi Phifer, who I guess for me, I kind of wish they gave him a little bit more of Mekhi Phifer, because I feel like he's a little bit more typecast in this film. And then Michael Kelly. I wish you would have given a little bit more for Michael Kelly in this, because I really like him as an actor. Dawn of the Dead, though, like I said, it's stylish, which is Zack Snyder's bread and butter. Like, it's making things look colorful and beautifully shot.
Well, it's stylish without being stylized. You know what I mean when I talk about the
I know
300 and things like that, and Sucker Punch and all those.
We just had a review of Cherry talking about that with the Russos, where it was over stylized.
Yeah, this one definitely has style to it without it being. It didn't take over the movie. It just made the movie better.
It added a little bit something more to what we don't normally see from a zombie film. And I think Dawn of the Dead, while I think I loved it more back then than I do currently now watching it, I think it was a great one of the best probably first time directing things from a director was Zack Snyder, and then immediately had 300 afterwards. Like I can see why everyone was so over the top with Zack Snyder, and then he followed up with Sucker Punch, and I was like, oh crap. But yeah.
I mean, one thing I also loved about this movie, though, is watching this movie, I realized how much I miss straight horror movies. You don't get to see a lot of straight horror movies anymore. It's like they'll make a lot of horror comedies, or they'll make like art house kind of horror movies, like the A24 kind of horror movies, or they'll make a lot of these, sinister, insidious, paranormal activity where it's just, spookiness and ghosts and things like that. But you don't get to see a lot of just straight horror movies anymore. And so I watched this and made me kind of miss that. And I wish they made more of those.
It's one of those where it's just like they got to feel like everything's got to have a twist now. Everything's got to be over convoluted. Where this is just straight up zombie apocalypse. These people get trapped in the mall, or they go to the mall to escape, and then eventually they just need to get out of the mall. Which I always felt, why the fuck do you guys have to leave the mall? You don't have to leave the mall. For some reason, they felt like they had to leave the mall. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead, great zombie film. I don't think I ever saw the original, so I really can't say if it's better or worse than the remake. But
this will be blasphemy, and a lot of people, one in particular I know, are going to hate me for saying this. This is so much better than the old ones. I mean, not just because fast zombies are way scarier than shuffling zombies. I'm sorry, I will say it 1,000 times over.
They are. I will agree with that.
But besides just the speed of the zombies, I just think this movie is so much more interesting and fun to watch and stuff than the old ones. I'm not a fan of the George Romero movies, and I'm sure that's blasphemy to some people, but I don't.
I'm not gonna lie though, the scariest zombie in this entire film, outside of the little girl, was the obese woman. When she starts chasing after dude, run!
The zombie baby was pretty creepy. The zombie baby was creepy.
Zombie baby, I think just goes a little too ridiculous. Like that was.
I thought it kind of worked. I didn't mind it.
Zombie baby, you guys let us know. You guys like Zombie Baby or not like Zombie Baby? I think zombie. There was a sci-fi show that came out recently, like in the midst of The Walking Dead.
Is that Z Nation?
Yeah, Z Nation. I remember watching the first episode, be like, this is gonna be great. And that first episode literally ended with a zombie baby literally like flying through the air, killing people. And I'm like, fuck this show. Like that literally zombie baby killed the show for me. And that was the first episode. This zombie baby acted like an actual baby. So I don't necessarily hate it, but like when I saw that zombie baby, I immediately started thinking of Z Nation. And be like, ridiculous. I'm not a big fan of zombie babies. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead, is it on anything?
Nope.
It's not, but I feel like most people who are horror fans have probably seen the original this Dawn of the Dead film. Going to our final film, it is Brian's pick. Brian, I will say this. You make me watch the weirdest damn movies. You pick stuff, and I'm like, I've never heard of this. And you're going, you're probably going to hate it. It's about this. And then I have to watch it, and I'm like, why does Brian make me do these? Like when I pick movies, I'm picking stuff that people like, people have seen, stuff like this. And then you pick movies like the movie we're about to talk about, which is the 1999. It's not Civil War. I don't know what war was.
It was actually the Mexican War or something.
Wow, we're pissing off so many people right now with history. But it's the 1990.
I forgot what war it is. Yeah.
Film war film. Ravenous. Ravenous came out March 19th, 1999, had a budget of $12 million, had a weekend opening of $1 million, was number 18 on its opening weekend, where Forces of Nature was the number one film, and finished with a box office of $2 million. So this was a movie. It was not a bad movie. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. Cast-wise, when I was watching this film, and I was seeing the cast, I was like, I like that person. I like that person. I like that person. That person I'm okay with. But yeah, it was a movie. Brian, take it away. Ravenous.
Yeah. First of all, it was the Mexican-American War. I was right on that.
Okay, cool. Mexican-American War.
I was going to say that originally, but I'm like, wait, is that a thing? I don't remember because, history, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's Ravenous. So it stars Guy Pearce is basically this guy who he's survived his role in the Mexican American War, but he's lost his taste for killing and violence. He can't handle it. He had to deal with so much blood and seeing people dead, and actually he had to pretend he was dead and was put in a pile of dead people and things like that. And so he's basically kind of non-functional as a soldier. So he's sent off to this kind of remote, isolated fort, which is kind of a stopping point for travelers heading to the west. But of course, in the middle of winter, it's pretty much there's nobody coming through there. So it's a skeleton crew there of I think it's 8 people total.
Yeah.
And then arrives the stranger, played by Robert Carlyle, and he seems kind of odd. Then you realize basically he's a cannibal is what it comes down to.
He's not just a cannibal; he's a Wendigo.
The Wendigo, yes.
For anyone
Who, as the legend goes, as the legend goes, is like if you eat the flesh of another person, you will basically absorb their strength. Which is kind of, and Guy Pearce is especially intrigued by this because while he was in a pile of dead people, the blood, flowed into his mouth, and he said that he felt the strength that got him to get up and be able to survive and get out of there and stuff like that. So he's especially curious.
A primal instinct.
Yeah. And then it becomes it's supposedly this insatiable hunger where the more you eat, the more you need to eat, the more you want to eat human flesh. And so it just goes on like that. So then the movie basically becomes this whole thing of trying to escape this cannibal who's trying to kill them, eat them. The acting performances, like you said, I thought were all very good. I mean, especially this time in their careers, Guy Pearce just coming off of LA Confidential. Robert Carlyle was just coming off the Full Monty and Trainspotting the year before that. So, I mean, these guys were kind of at the height of their careers, and to do something this odd, I got to kind of commend them for that. I mean, it didn't even have like any, that the director was not anybody of note. The producer's not even of note, so I'm not sure why they signed on to this, but I'm glad they did because it's an out there film. But I mean, a lot of my picks are either, things that I think not enough people have seen. Whether they're going to like it or not, I don't know. And I've done this in previous picks too. I'm like, you might hate this movie, but I think you should check it out and make an opinion for yourself because it's one of those movies it's kind of not like much anything else because it's not really a horror movie, but it's not a drama. It's not.
It's like a psychological kind of thriller to a point, especially towards the third act. It's very psychological.
Yeah, it's a lot of psychological moments to it, and I forgot to mention, by the way, Neil McDonough also in it. One of his early roles.
Very first, Neil McDonough, Jeffrey Jones, David Arquette, probably one of his first films as well.
Yeah, he had a very small part in it, but yeah, he was.
Jeremy Davies.
Yeah, so I mean, it's got a great cast, but the one aspect of it, I told Sean. Well, I didn't tell him. I knew going in.
You did not tell me.
No, I thought about it. I'm like, I almost texted you. I'm like, when you watch this movie, there's one thing about this movie that you are going to hate.
And boy, were you right.
Go ahead and you take it from here. I want to hear what you have to say about it first.
Before we get into that one aspect.
Okay.
Yes, I think Robert Carlyle, he's a fantastic villain character. For anyone who ever watched Once Upon a Time, he was Rumpelstiltskin. He's fantastic in that. I really like his performance in this film. I think he is what carries the movie. You know what? I keep defending Guy Pearce. I am not a Guy Pearce fan. Every time I think of Guy Pearce fan, I watch him.
I've been kind of the same way where I wanted to defend him in some things, and then the more I think about it, I realize I really do like him in several roles that he does, but he makes a lot of stuff where he's just kind of.
He's honestly, I feel like for most of this film, he either was trying to hold in a bad fart, or he was just kind of.
Well, human flesh gives you gas,
Well, maybe, but it's just like he's just kind of like the whole movie, and it's just like. Fucking act, God! And it's like, and then when he does try, I'm just like, now I'm just over you now. Like maybe I thought I liked Guy Pearce. God damn, he's not good in this movie. I thought Jeffrey Jones was good in his role. David Arquette is atrocious in this film, but it's probably
one. He's only in like 2 scenes.
He is.
He's in at the beginning. They send him off to some other town 3 days away.
Laughing the entire time.
Yeah.
But Neil McDonough, I mean, he was playing a type, so I'm not gonna. And he was playing it kind of over the top, but I'm not going to – it was one of his first roles, probably with David Arquette. I can't hold that against him. This is really held on by, to me, Robert Carlyle's performance. It should be held on by Guy Pearce's performance, but Guy Pearce is not good in this film. Robert Carlyle is fantastic. Like I said, the whole first part of this film, I was like, I'm not about this until Robert Carlyle showed up. And for anyone who's ever watched the TV show Supernatural, the second episode of the whole series has to do with a Wendigo. So as soon as they mentioned Wendigo, I perked up. I'm like, oh, I know what this is. I know what kind of character this is. Oh, is this what this movie is? Oh, Brian's right. I'm going to love this. And they go on this journey. Like he tells this really awesome story. Well, not awesome in terms of what happened to him, but this really interjected story to get all these people to go search. And as this stuff's happening, and then the ball drops on what's going on, I'm like, if this becomes the movie I think it's going to become, this is going to be great. And it's like that for 5 minutes, and then it stops being that movie, and then it just moves on to something else. And I'm like, okay. And then the next thing happens. And I'm like, okay, if this turns out to be the movie I think it's going to be, this could work. And then it doesn't. And it's one of those things where it's like every time something would start to happen, I'd be like, if they go this route, I'm going to actually really, really enjoy this. And then they don't go that route. It's like a big tease to me throughout most of this film. I kept getting excited thinking that this was going to be where it was going to go. And then they just completely diverted to something else. I was like, well, that's not fun. That's not good. And then they start, I'm like, okay, you're winning me back. And then you lost me again. And that's also where I feel like Robert Carlyle's performance is great. I think he's great in this film. From beginning to end, his performance is what makes me like the film. But there's just so many missed opportunities. There's so much, like if it had just been a like story of them lost in the woods being hunted by this Wendigo, because there has not really been a good Wendigo horror film, of like Neil McDonough and the rest of the cast trying to make it back to the fort while being hunted by Robert Carlyle, this would have worked. Had it been kind of when he came back to the fort, kind of like almost like The Thing, but in a army fort like this with the Wendigo, it could have been great. But then they didn't follow through with it. And then eventually we just get the end, and it's just kind of like, eh. But yes, the one thing that makes this movie, oh my God, what the hell am I watching? The music / score of this film is fucking ridiculously stupid. Like, at one point, I almost thought like someone was playing a recorder. Like, you know, that stupid instrument we all had to play in kids at school that sounds horrific. And they played that thing at least 3 separate times in the film. And it's at the worst moments. Like, serious shit's going down where you should have like intense music to get your blood pumping. It's like, what the hell is playing right now? You're killing the film.
It wasn't as out of place as The Third Man, though. I'll say that.
What's that?
It wasn't as out of place as The Third Man score, but
no, it wasn't. The Third Man score still boggles my mind to this day. But there are certain. Oh my God, the score of this film was awful. I messaged you halfway through, and I'm like, "What the hell is up with the score?" And you're like, "Yeah, I knew you'd hate it." And I'm like, I don't hate the movie, but the score is really making it trying on me.
Now let me say in defense of the score.
You're gonna defend it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I love the score? No. But I actually really kind of like what they were going for, because first of all, you could tell they used all as opposed to having like a traditional score, they used all basically era appropriate instruments. It was a fiddle. It was kind of an organ that sounds almost more like an accordion. It was like a very rudimentary guitar, that kind of thing. And it seemed like they were going for that kind of era appropriate music, but at the same time, it was definitely off. Everything was a little bit dissonant. Everything was a little bit, almost like somebody was like pounding on the keys of an organ kind of thing. And I kind of think it worked in that it was supposed to be unsettling. It was supposed to be kind of, yeah. And I thought they did it to create kind of an unsettling atmosphere. It feels off. And I thought that it actually contributed to the film. Do I love the score? Am I going to buy the soundtrack and listen to the music by itself? Absolutely not. But for me, in the movie, it worked.
I honestly felt like most of the time I was like, am I in Deliverance? Like, I'm... There
was banjo, yes.
Yeah, I was just like, what is going on? Because to me, it detracted from the film, because I'm watching a chase sequence happen where they're trying with the Wendigo and everything, and then I'm pausing and I'm like, what the hell is playing over this? And it's like, you shouldn't be watching a movie in the middle of like a heightened scene and going, what the hell is this music? And it's like, that's the part where it's like the kind of like a referee or an umpire in sports. The ref and the umpires are not supposed to take over the game. The music is supposed to heighten the film, not distract the viewer from watching the movie to go, what the fuck is playing?
I will say I can totally agree with you that I can see how it was distracting to the film, because the first time I saw this movie, my friends and I, this is in the theater, we're like, what the fuck is this music? But in the times later watching it, I know what to expect, so I'm not really paying attention to the music, and so it's not pulling me out of the movie as much as this. I mean, there's movies like The Untouchables is one for me, which I think the music in that movie is so blaring and bombastic, and it takes over the movie. So I can see what you're talking about, how it shouldn't take over the movie and distract you from the movie. And so I can see how scores can do that, and I can see how the score of this movie can do that. So I mean, maybe if you watched again down the road, maybe you won't find it as distracting, but
that or ready for it to hit, like, oh god, this movie. But yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, you had me checked out this movie that I never heard of before. You told me it's a cannibal movie, which I was like, okay, is this gonna be like Green Inferno?
I mean, that's kind of like it's very. I'm boiling it down to almost nothing, but it's hard to describe without just saying it's about cannibals.
You had me in this one mindset, and then as soon as I found out that it was a Wendigo, I immediately was like, oh shit, this could be good.
Oh, were you looking for them like to encounter a tribe of cannibals or something? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, when you said cannibals, I was thinking like a Green Inferno kind of thing. I was like, oh god, I don't want to watch this. Like, this is gonna be bad. But then when I saw what it was like, oh, it's about a Wendigo, and this, I was like, oh, this is not at all what I thought Brian was trying to pitch me, and I was like really excited. I was like, but it kept. This movie could have been, in my eyes, so much better if they had gone other little routes than they really did, and it ultimately just felt like a film that had a really good idea, but didn't think of it well thought out. And by the end of it, I was just like, this was a missed opportunity. I do think Robert Carlyle's performance is really, really good in this film. So if you guys want to check out if you guys like Robert Carlyle from Once Upon a Time or Full Monty or Trainspotting, I think you guys are really going to enjoy his performance in this film. The rest of the cast, they're all solid performances, but not anything to go out of your way to see. But Robert Carlyle's performance, I think, is really, really good. I don't think this is on any streaming services.
Nope.
People probably haven't heard of this film personally. Like, I had never heard of it. It definitely didn't feel like a 1999 film either. It felt like something a little bit more older, personally. Yeah. It felt like an 80s film or like an early 90s film. But any last thoughts on Ravenous?
No, I think I covered most of my thoughts on it. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, that's our episode, guys. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Weekend Crusaders. Like I said, we had a wide spectrum of things to talk about on this episode. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And, of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, at least me, I will have a review for Zack Snyder's Justice League. I don't know if Brian will have time to watch it as long as I do. If he is, he'll be on the review with me because I'm sure we will both have things to say about that film. But we will be back here next week with our next episode of Weekend Crusaders. And our hints for next week is we have a film that is really going to try me, and it's really going to test me. And I don't know where I'm going to go with it yet.
Let me say this, and you can edit this out if you don't want to. This is the one time I know of that Sean picked a film as his pick, not because he likes it, but because he hates it so much.
It was one of those things where I really wanted this to be the stinker, and you were like, I don't hate this movie, so I can't actively make it a stinker. And then I said, well, fuck you then. This is my pick, so I can bash the hell out of this film. So we're going to have two stinkers next week. Could I watch this and have different thoughts? I doubt it, but who knows? Crazier things that happen. We also got a film that I remember liking. I remember not thinking it was that bad. That's Brian's pick.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people didn't like the direction it took the director's career, but I thought it was better than most people's career.
I thought it was fine for what it is. We've got a sports film that Brian and I both love, that we both think is criminally underrated. So we can't wait to see that. We have a comedy that should have been great, but was ultimately one of the biggest disappointments of the year when it came out. And then we have another sports comedy film that I don't remember as much. I remember the
really?
I remember like the main stuff, but I don't remember the whole film. So I'm gonna love going back to revisit that one.
That's a great comedy. And I would like to just point out real quick our stinker for next week. You mentioned Dawn of the Dead. You surprised it only opened in #1 for 1 week. This movie opened above it the following week. Our stinker.
The one that beat it?
This one and Scooby-Doo Monsters Unleashed was #1 that week.
God. Oh, that makes me love Dawn of the Dead even more. And upset that this film beat it.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway, next week's gonna be a very interesting episode. We hope you guys come back and watch that. Till next time, I am Sean Wasserkrug. That is Brian Michaels. We are the Weekend Crusaders. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.